the measurable innovation, your valuation will increase, your balance sheet will look good or maybe burst, but immeasurable part has to be actually taken care of, which many organizations tend to ignore. So KPIs, dashboards, all are structured data available across you to help you actually measure. But when it comes to immeasurable, I would say that a lot of effort has to go in and see what is your customer experience, what is your customer centricity towards. All those parameters have to be dealt with, how your partners are working out. Is this partner helping you to reach out the customers? What was the satisfaction level of the customer with the partner? Tons of parameters you can talk about, and then it has to be injected within the DNA of the organization. That innovation is something which has to go from top to the bottom. It has to be a cultural shift. And to see that cultural shift happening, I mean, even the employees should be part of that innovation journey so that they can see a sizable impact they are making, whether it's a measurable impact or an immeasurable impact. That's my take on that.
And I think the last one before we open up for a couple of questions, linked to this for Hesham is you've touched on researching innovation, you've touched on celebrating innovation. What about within your organizations you're involved in, the monitoring, the benchmarking, the testing of innovation? I know that's something close to your heart.
Definitely. We're talking here about definitely basics of quality, like quality assurance, measuring. And going back to the original rules, what Dominic said, like, the most important rule he said about quality, he said, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. Today, what I'll be saying, I'll be shifting it around. If you cannot manage it, you cannot measure it. So the best way to look at innovation is actually to look at, are we actually managing innovation in our organization? And to understand this well, you need to look at the 3 key layers or the 3 key domains within the organization. Any organization, it looks at leadership, systems within the organization, the EFQM, the model, the quality model, of course, they talk about processes, but everyone nowadays is even themselves shifting to systems, thinking systems. So the leadership is responsible for creating those effective systems in order to achieve best possible outcomes for the investment that the organization is getting, either it's funding from the government or stakeholders or IPO or whatever it is. So initially, we need to ask as an organization, we need to ask ourselves, what is the level of our innovation in leadership, in processes and systems, and in outcomes? Once we start benchmarking, we can use different, like the quality tools or different systems for benchmarking. Once we get agreeing on this, then we establish an internal extension, an external benchmark to understand where are we heading with innovation, what do we expect from our leaders, what an innovative system would look like in our organization, and based on this, what kind of outcomes we would expect from our organization. And looking at outcomes, they're actually even analyzing them deeper. You will definitely be looking at your customer, what kind of outcomes you would be giving to what improvements, what innovation you can do with your. We started initially, when we started engaging or talking about the customer, it was customer service, and then evolved to customer care, and now there's customer engagement, and then customer loyalty, and then so that's the kind of higher level of expectations, because nowadays most customers, especially we're living here in Dubai, when Sheikh Mohammed spoke about it, he said, when he described it like an efficient and innovative government, he said a government that is accessible 24/7, 365 days, because he's talking about exactly access to the service, the quality of the service, the access, the value you're adding to the customer. Once you identify your customer, what kind of measuring and innovations and parameters we're working with them, you need to look at your organization itself. What value added? Are you saving in the initial budget itself? Are you using the money or the funding or the resource of the organization the best possible way? The ultimate is the community itself, the contribution the organization is making to the community, what innovations I can make through my organization. I really like what Noor, the example he said about using the bacterial. That's extremely, like, you know, under, like, you know, mind, like, you know, some people would say what kind of innovation would happen there. But definitely, like, you know, this is the kind of thinking you would be going in the organization. What are we adding to this community, either, you know, in healthcare, education, in economy, and entrepreneurial capacity? So these are the points we need to consider.
Well, thank you, Hesham, and thank you to all my panel. We've got a couple of minutes, have we, for some if anyone has any questions, please shout out.
While we're waiting for the mic to come around, there's Shantanu here. A quick question for the panel. I mentioned earlier that only a third of the Fortune 1000 companies have formal innovation rubrics. I was wondering if you might have any insights into why this is so. Why do so few companies measure innovation? And the second part is, the audience is privileged to have an expert panel like this. I don't know when the next time will be when the audience will have the good fortune to have 6 or 7 experts in front of them. So if they had to go back, if all these entrepreneurs had to go back to their workplace and create an innovation rubric, what element do you think they should include based on your personal experience? A key element to include in an innovation metric or rubric?
I think if in the organization perspective, each and every employee should be given a KPI to innovate, which is maybe 5% or 10% of their entire KPI. The performance is just judged by the innovative ways of doing business right at the bottom of the pyramid.
Right.
That's my take on that. So then only the culture shift will happen, and then only the innovation will start. And GE is doing it. GE is now globally announced that every guy has to be doing some kind of a programming. I mean, not IT programming, some kind of a programming to change the process.
Right. I mean, Jabir, do you want to touch on the innovation matrix?
The key thing, we were talking about changing the culture in the company. The question comes, how do you change the culture? That's the key thing, right? The way I see it is the first thing you want to change the culture, it changes by your mindset. How do you change the mindset? The way I've seen it in change in other companies is through using structured methodology of innovation. And those is like TRIZ, systematic innovation, right? Biomimicry. When you bring this new 21st century tools that really changes the thinking, that brings the passion. That's the first element to change the culture. And coming to the matrix again, I mean, as you said, innovation is not, it's easy to say to measure innovation, but it's not simple to measure. It's pretty difficult, right? So to break that down, I would say that there are 3 groups of metrics you can apply, not just one like ROI. One is the financial, which is the ROI we talked about. The other is the organizational matrix we also talked, which is about A, how many employees or people in your organization have been through this structured innovation methodology? Do you allow time for them to experiment? Do you allow them experimental capital, training programs, and the process? Then the third one is the leadership matrix. Leadership matrix will take into account, first of all, in my opinion, will be how many leaders of your organization have been through the structured innovation methodology training. Second is how many leaders are sponsoring projects. Third is how many managers have become leaders of new products, new market, or new business. So these are the 3 main areas where you can have the metrics, for measurement. And finally, ROI, which I would call is return on ideas implemented, ROII, okay? Now in that is very crucial, very important, because that justifies, the ROII justifies the investment in innovation, and it is the engine that feeds it, right? But you also got to have the other one, and I'll touch on that thing. If I take everything, what did you use, measurement, the soft measurements you were talking about? I would bring it down to intangible measurements, right? Now, if we're looking back in 1982, the value was on tangibles. If you come fast forward to this year, the value is on intangibles. So the intangible measurements and intangible, which is happiness, peace of mind, contentment, that is more key. than the tangibles.
Right, who's got the mic? Yeah, go ahead. If you have the mic, please ask your question.
Yes. Well, my question was partially answered right now at this point. I mainly wanted to focus on the immeasurable part that everyone was talking about, the non-technical, the one concerned with the culture and the process and so on. So you, in your final point, you said that finally the most important things that we should focus on more is the happiness and the content of our customers or employees and so on. So I just, I still have a problem in, defining the how to do that. So how did you suggest that we, what kind of indicators, or what is the quantifiable, manner of which we can, what are the indicators that, or the parameters that indicate happiness and content? So should we go for surveys? Should we go for, so what's the exact, if I'm going to construct a certain template to be used on and on, systematically for different industries or sectors, what are the key things I should include in my matrices? You mentioned 3 matrices: financial, organization, and leadership, and that I should include happiness and content. But what are, so how, should I survey my employees or customers and ask them how happy are you? So how would that indicate the, innovation? Am I clear or not?
Yes, I think we've got you. I might pass this one on to Noor.
Sure. I think it really depends on who you are in the company, what your position is in the company, and the size of the company. So I work with entrepreneurs a lot, and they tend to be on the ground, and they see entrepreneurs a lot. They see their employees and they see their customers a lot. And as their company starts to grow, they start facing this challenge because, when you're dealing with 10, 20, 50 employees, you have face-to-face interaction with them, you're doing a lot of sales calls. When you get to 500, 1,000 employees, it's just almost physically impossible to see all your employees and all your customers. And there are some things that you can do. So there are some measurements of that. So for example, you have the hygiene factors, such as looking at your turnover rate for your employees, your retention rate for your customers. And these will show you that, these will give you an indication that there's something really wrong. And then you can implement certain policies. So a lot of the advice that the entrepreneurs we work with get from mentors is, and this is amazing because this advice always comes from successful entrepreneurs. They tell the next generation of entrepreneurs, keep going on sales calls. Have a sales team, have a sales manager, but don't let go of it completely. So a lot of them make it a habit of going randomly, at least every week or every month on sales calls, sit with customers, talk to them, take them out for lunch, listen to them, and customers will tell you if they're happy or not. So there's a lot of, I think the danger here is to try to over-automate this process, to say, we're going to build this software and it's going to tell us everything that's there. A lot of what you need to do is just personal interaction. Employees, I think it's really just a matter of putting your mind to it and really making sure that there are, as much as you're innovating to come up with more better products and more innovative products, there's a lot of innovation to actually build a process and a system that will make people happy. There's actually a tangent in psychology called positive psychology, where one psychologist came up and said, noticed that psychology for the longest time was focusing on disorders and just, these outliers. And then he said, well, there's a lot of really happy people. Let's study what makes people happy. And there's a lot of work that's being done today to really translate that into corporations and how to make people happy. There's a lot, obviously, I only have a minute to answer you, but there's a lot that can be done to really improve that. But it will never be perfect. I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. It's a matter of just progressing and improving on that.
Very, very insightful session. Now, I have more of a philosophical question actually. based on the first this thing, like how much innovation is just enough. And so what I was thinking of is, for example, if you look at innovation, should it be for maximizing customer satisfaction or maximizing the profitability of the company? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you look at Gillette blades, right? I'm very happy with those, the blade with just having 2 blades in that. But every 6 months they will come out with, you know, triple max, and then they will have some new things, they keep on innovating, right? And do we actually really need those kind of innovations every 6 months? Is it really going to make a difference? Or for example, if I go to a coffee shop, I just want to order a normal coffee, but they will keep me asking 50 questions about what size I want, do I want with milk, what type of milk I want, what type of sugar I want. So for the company, they're innovating, but from the end point, it becomes just a waste of time. And you know, so that I wanted to see like whether you can pinpoint on how much innovation is just enough and which direction the company should really go.
James, do you want to kick off?
Well, I think that's right on the money, actually. I think Bruce Springsteen did the song once, 57 channels and not much on. Something like that. And there's a famous book, Barry Schwartz, The Tyranny of Choice. My answer to you is that neither shareholder value nor customer satisfaction does it for me. You know, nobody on this panel is going to have their children visit their grave, and on the grave goes, Jabir Walji, he got 3.7% ROI, not 3.6%. You know, they're not going to go to your grave.